Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This video, I'm going to be looking at the artwork of Al Feldstein. Now, Al Feldstein is one of my favorite artists of the Golden Age. And he kind of got onto my radar because of EC Comics. When I first started collecting comics, I tried to pick up a few of the issues of early EC comics, like the Golden Age horror style comics. And one of the artists that did the covers was Al Feldstein. So once I got back into collecting comics, I got into good girl art, and I noticed, hey, it's again Al Feldstein that the covers that I sort of gravitated towards. So I started really appreciating his artwork. So I wanted to learn more about Al Feldstein, and I want to bring some of that knowledge to you about this great artist. So one of the things that I bought was this book. It's quite a nice book, all about Al Feldstein. This is talking about two of his major comics that he produced, Junior and Sonny. They're two separate ones. It also has one of the issues of Cloris Archer, which is another comic that he was involved with. And, this book has a really nice intro, like at the beginning of it, explaining the history of Al Feldstein. And, I really enjoyed this book because I could read all the comics and, enjoy the comics which I have in my collection. So with all that said, I want to show you some of Al Feldstein's work because then you can see why I maybe gravitated to it. A lot of his stuff was kind of featured in The Seduction of the Innocent. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I talk about The Seduction of the Innocent quite a lot because that was a book that was written about how comics were really corrupting the minds of the youth of America. And Al Feldstein's comics, a lot of the ones that he either drew the artwork for or was involved with, were featured prominently in The Seduction of the Innocent. So it's kind of interesting. Here's one of them that's in The Seduction of the Innocent, and it's called Cloris Archer. And so Cloris Archer is actually a fictional character. It was a radio show that aired in the 40s and 50s. And they decided to make a comic about it. And Al Feldstein was the one that did the artwork for the first issue and the cover. So basically, you can see that this is called a Headlight cover. And you can see the way her breasts kind of protrude. That's why it was kind of featured in The Seduction of the Innocent. That is sort of corrupting young boys' minds and making them think of only about women. So this is Al Feldstein's artwork. I personally really like it. I think it's kind of cool. But I want to give you a little bit of history of Al Feldstein, and not just show you some of his better works, but give you a little history about him. He was born in 1925, and he was a young Jewish boy. Growing up in pretty hard times. That was like the Great Depression era. And he basically was poor, but he applied for an art contest in 1939 where you could draw, like for the New York World's Fair, a poster art, okay? And he won. He won that art contest. So he's like 16, he's got this, win behind his back, and he decides, hey, why not get involved with, making some money, because he saw that you could make $25 a page in selling your artwork to comic producers. And that was like one of those gimmicks at the time. Obviously not, what they say is not what they actually do. But he ended up doing a lot of stuff like this. And this is not his artwork. I'm going to tell you what this is, though. So this is Sheena, and one of the things that Feldstein did when he's a young boy is he would draw the dots on her costume. So all the little spots that are on her, like leopard skin costume, that was Al Feldstein's job to do. This is what he did, and then eventually he got into doing more the background art, and really redoing the pencils of other artists. And he got really learned to hone his own art skills. So he sort of progressed within the sphere, and he got involved with Fox. Now, Fox was kind of an interesting publisher. They are, very, very shady. the guy, potentially the owner, Vincent Fox, was maybe connected to the mafia, kind of had that criminal background kind of element to him. Very shady character. And he was one of those people in publishers who basically would not give his artists much credit. They would do the artwork, but he wouldn't let them show their their signatures, or a lot of the time they would be given no credit for the artwork that they did. And some of the ones that he produced for Fox were, as you saw in the book, this Junior was one of them. And this is more good girl art from Junior. And what Fox would do is he would pick other titles like Archie. Archie was becoming very popular, and he would try to rip them off. Basically create the same character and, leverage the success of Archie and try to make his own thing. So this was Junior, which was almost like a total ripoff of Archie. And Al Feldstein, his job was he would do the artwork, but not only would he do the artwork, he would actually write the story. So he was really involved with creating these books. So that's one of his. And here's another one. This is Junior, which just happens to be the same as the cover of the book that I have. And this is the first Junior. I should say Junior number 14. This is the cover from that other book, but this is the original comic. So it's one of my favorite covers from Feldstein, this one. I really like it. So what happened was, Fox eventually went bankrupt, and Al Feldstein, he got basically, into other things, and he started working for EC. And under EC, he had a lot more creative freedom. That was one really great thing about EC. It was a very pro, letting its artists be artists, just let them do what they want to do. And so under EC, he was producing, titles like Weird Fantasy. So this is one of Feldstein's work. Probably one of the more famous Al Feldstein artwork. So this is Weird Fantasy number 16. And then he, some more Al Feldstein. And you can see that he would sign it at the bottom. You can see his little signature. I'm not sure if you can see that, but yeah, that's his signature. And, so some more Weird Fantasy. And then he did titles like Weird Science. So all these like sci-fi kind of books. And then he did some more Weird Science. These are all Feldstein artwork. This is Weird Fantasy. Another Al Feldstein cover. Very famous. These are all very famous covers. And another Weird Fantasy. A lot of sci-fi. And then after the Comic Code Authority, these are the final issues before the Comic Code Authority came into play. It's more Al Feldstein and one more issue. These are sort of like the end of that era, that he was sort of in that era where basically the Comic Code Authority came into play, and all of a sudden all these publishers the work dried up. And it looked like, Al Feldstein was going to be on the street. What happened was EC had one last comic that it could really, or that it was really allowed to produce. Most of its other stuff really kind of got shelved. You weren't even allowed to use the word weird anymore as a title. So all of a sudden, so many of his titles were destroyed. So what happened was they had one comic left, and it was called Mad Comics. And I actually have Mad Comics number 1 up that way. So Mad Comics number 1, Mad was like this sort of satirical comic that basically Bill Gaines decided, hey, I'll take this comic that is sort of satirical, and that will be where I go with EC Publishing. And I'll kind of avoid all the other stuff that I used to produce and just focus on this one thing. So what happened was, at first, the editor for Mad was Harvey Kurtzman, and Harvey Kurtzman left Mad, and so Bill Gaines was like, I need somebody, and he got Al Feldstein. So Al Feldstein ended up being the editor for Mad for like a fairly long duration. I think 30 years or something like that, until like I think from the like 56 all the way up into the 80s. And he took Mad magazine that was producing maybe a couple 100,000 comics per month to 2 million. So really expanded the reach and the size of the publication. So that was the sort of history of Al Feldstein, and he later retired, and he did a lot of fine art, and he was recognized for his fine art skills. So this has been my take on Al Feldstein, an artist that I truly appreciate, and I think that he was a really great artist from the golden age, and that had his influence all the way up until the modern age. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my other videos. I have lots of unboxing videos and other content on my channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.